Today's video, this is what we're making, or this is what we made making. Hi and welcome back to my YouTube channel. If it's your first time seeing me, my name is Fumi and you are welcome to this channel. Here I put sewing tutorials, DIYs, thrift flips and stuff like that. So if any of those words sounded interesting to you, then you should definitely stick around, watch a few videos, and I'm sure you subscribe after I see a few of our videos. Anyway, today's video, I'm really excited for this one, kind of also nervous, but lately I've been trying to see how to like reuse leftover fabric, how to make them useful instead of just throwing them away. The fabrics that I'm using today, they don't really qualify as scrap fabric because like it's quite a good amount, but still this is leftover from like a previous project. So for this one I have just about 1.5 yards of the lilac one, and then for the darker purple I have like almost 2 yards, but still not up to 2 yards. So individually I wasn't really sure what to do with both of them, but seeing as they are both like in the same color, basically like different shades of the same color, I finally got an idea which was inspired by a dress that I have created on this channel. Actually, my first sewing tutorial on this channel, I'm going to link it in the description box. But yeah, so this is kind of inspired by that as well. So we're going to be doing a lot of cut and paste with both fabrics to create a sort of pattern and then make a dress out of it. I don't know how else to explain it. Try to turn into like a sort of striped fabric and then make a dress out of that fabric. So if you are curious about that and you want to see how this goes, then you should definitely stay tuned. Let me know if you end up recreating this dress by following this tutorial. You can let me know and send me your pictures on my Instagram, which is also linked in the description box. I can't wait to hear from you because I really love when you follow tutorials and are able to recreate, because that's the whole point of me creating tutorials. Anyway, I've been talking for too long. Let's get straight into the video.
Alright, so we're starting off with everything that I'm using for this project. And now first thing I've done is to fold my fabric over into 4, and then with my measuring tape, my chalk and my scissors, this is the most tedious part I think of this project, marking out 4 inches in length and just marking that 4 inches at different points on my fabric. And then after marking this, I'm going to cut it out, and that's basically one strip of fabric, and I'm going to do that over and over again until I have enough strips to make the dress that I want. So what you can see me doing here is just marking that 4 inches, and as you can see, I'm just cutting following what I've marked, and I'm just doing that over and over again. You want to make sure that your lines are as straight as possible. So I'm just trying to get as many strips of fabric as I can, and then I'm doing that also on my second fabric. So you just do this on all of the fabrics that you're using basically, or if you're just going to do one, but I think it works better when there are more than one color.
Okay, so these are all the strips. As you can see, I've laid everything out, and I think we have about 7 of each color, so we have 14 rows of this, and this is sort of the pattern that I want to create with all of these strips of fabric. So the next thing that I'm going to do right now is to actually take each of them and sew them together. So I'm just going to like be joining them and alternating between the lilac and the purple and the lilac and the purple until I have a big piece of fabric, and then I would cut my dress. So let's get straight to that.
2,000 years later.
And after so much sewing, this is what my fabric looks like. I also ironed it, by the way, just to make everything flat and nice. So this is what it looks like. I'm really happy with the results, and now I can finally start cutting my dress. So first thing I'm doing is folding it over. I want my stripes to be horizontal, so that's why I'm folding it this way. And then first of all, marking out my zip allowance because I'm cutting the back of the dress first. So I'm marking out 1.5 inches all the way down, and then connecting those points. That's going to be my zipper allowance. So starting from that line of the zipper allowance right there. Okay, first of all, I'm sorry, I'm pinning it in place as well, just to make sure like nothing is moving around as I'm marking and all of that. Now this is the shoulder area, so starting from that zipper allowance, I'm marking half of my shoulder to shoulder measurements right there, as you can see. And I'm also marking the width of my neck, which is about 4 inches. You can make yours slightly smaller or a bit bigger, but I'm just going for like an average sized neck. And then I'm coming down by 1.5 inches for the depth of the neck. So I'm just going to connect that, as you can see me doing. And then I'm also going to mark my shoulder slope, which is 1 inch, as you can see there. And then I'm going to connect that point to my neckline in just a straight slanted line. There we go. So I'm going to take that same half shoulder to shoulder measurement I marked up there, and I'm marking it here as well, just so that I can have a straight line coming down from that point. And then now I'm just drawing my straight line down from my shoulder. Now on that area, I'm marking half of my round armhole, which for me is 8 inches, and then I'm just marking that point. This is where it stops. So that's kind of, you can see it's kind of forming my armhole. So at that corner there, I'm just going to round that corner, because it can't just be a sharp edge. So I just rounded it up a bit. And on this point here, I'm marking 1/4 of my bust measurement, and then I'm adding 1 inch for sewing allowance as well. Then from my shoulder, I'm marking my shoulder to waist measurement so that I can know where my waistline falls. So after marking that, I'm going to divide my waist measurement by 4 and then add 1 inch for sewing allowance, and that's what you can see me marking here. I'm also going to add another inch because I'm going to put darts on this dress. So yeah, 1 inch for darts, 1 inch for sewing allowance. And then from that waistline, I'm coming down by 8 inches, which is the distance between my waist and my hips. You can take this measurement on yourself as well. So I'm coming down by 8 inches and I'm going to mark that. And that is where I'm going to mark my quarter hip measurement plus 1 inch for sewing allowance. And then going down to the hem, I'm just going to take out 1.5 inches from what I had at my hip measurement. I'm sorry, I didn't realize I was out of the frame at that point, but that was what I did at the hem. And then now I'm just connecting all of my points together. I didn't realize at the time, but for some reason my chalk isn't as clear on camera, but I hope you understand what I'm explaining. So at the waistline, in that zipper allowance area, I'm going to come in by 1/2 inch, because you know we left 1.5 inches for our zipper allowance. So I'm just going to come in by 1/2 inch, and then I'm going to, when I cut it out, I'm just going to smooth that out into the 1.5 inch zipper allowance. You see what I mean in a minute. So first of all, I've cut my dress. Then you can see I cut out that 1/2 inch from my zipper allowance at the back, so that the back is not completely straight. And this is what we have. If you're not so clear on this, you can watch my tutorial on how to do a dress pattern for a better explanation. So right now I am cutting the front piece of my dress because we just finished the back. So I folded over my fabric the same way I did before cutting the back, and then I spread my back piece on the folded piece of fabric, and I'm just tracing that out. The only difference is we're not adding in the zipper allowance because we're not putting a zip on the front of the dress. But other than that, I did the same thing for the front of the dress. And then now for the neckline, I'm coming down by 4 inches because the front of the neck is usually deeper than the back. And then I'm just connecting that to this. I use the same width as the back for the neck. And then now I'm just cutting that out. So you can see our front neck is deeper than the back. And then on the armhole as well, I'm going to find the midpoint of my armhole, which is about 4 inches. And then, so yeah, about 4 inches. And then I'm going to come in by 1/2 inch. And then I'm just going to connect that to the rest of the armhole, to the underarm, and then to the shoulder line. And then I'm just going to cut that piece out it's a small piece, but it makes a lot of difference actually. So yeah, now we have our front and our back pieces. Next thing I'm going to do is to cut my facing, which is what I'm going to use to finish the neck line of my dress. So you can see I folded over this fabric and placed my front piece on it, and you can see that it stops just a few inches after the armhole. So I'm just pinning it in place, and then I'm just going to trace, like follow my dress shape and just cut out from the fabric, as you can see me doing. And then I'm going to do the same thing for the back piece as well. And here we have it. These are the front and back pieces of our dress. Okay, so I had to join 3 more strips of fabric to make the piece of fabric that I'm going to cut the sleeves out of. So here's everything, and first thing I'm doing is measuring my armhole with my measuring tape. So I'm just going to take my measuring tape and curve it around that area, and I have 10.5. And so I am keeping that measurement in mind. I'm going to start cutting my sleeves. So as you can see, I folded over my fabric, and this is going to be the armhole area, and the other end is going to be the hem. So I'm measuring the length of my sleeve first of all. For me, I'm using about 9 inches, so it just depends on your preference. Honestly, 9 inches is fine for me. Remember that, remember to take into consideration the fact that you're going to hem the sleeve, so you might want to add 1.5 inches to your initial length. And so after drawing a straight line at the hem, I'm coming to this armhole area, and I'm just going to draw this weirdly shaped curve. As you can see here, I used my free hand, and then with my measuring tape I'm going to measure and make sure I get 10.5 inches. So you can see it, and then I'm just taking my measuring tape to make sure that I have 10.5 inches. And at the point where I have my 10.5 inches, I'm going to mark that area right there. And then here I'm going to measure half of my armhole, of my round sleeve, plus 1 inch for sewing allowance, and then I'm going to connect those points together, as you can see me doing. And there we have it. That's our sleeve. So I'm just going to pin it in place and then cut it out, and then I'm going to use this piece to cut the second sleeve, because they're basically the same thing. And here the both of them are. I'm just going to put them aside for now and focus on our dress. So here's the body of the dress, both the front and the back, and the first thing I want to do is to sew around the neck. So I'm going to open it up and place my facing on the right side of my fabric, and then sew the neckline, both for the front and the back pieces. I'm going to sew the neckline in place and then turn my facing to the back. So here is my dress after I've attached the facing. So you can see this is my facing. You can see I've attached it at the neck area. This is the wrong side of my dress. You can see all of the seams. You can see the seam where I joined my facing to my dress, and I've gone ahead to press it as well. That's why it's looking nice and flat like this. So now next thing I've done is to take my front piece and mark a line at the center, because I want to draw my darts. So from this point I'm going to just measure to find out where my waistline is, because that's like the widest area of the darts. So you want to make sure you know where the waistline is. That's going to be the midpoint of the darts. And so from that, my midline, I'm coming to one side by 4.5 inches, and then I'm going to mark that, and then I'm going to do the exact same thing on the other side. Remember, this is the midpoint of our darts. So now I'm going to come up from that line by 6 inches. I'm sorry, 5.5 inches actually. 5.5 inches, going up by 5.5 inches. And basically what you do on one side, you do the same thing on the other side. So I'm just marking it, making sure my markings are visible. And then from that waistline as well, I'm also coming down by about 6.5 inches. So I'm going to do it on one side, and then I'm going to do it on the other side as well. Now on each of these points, I'm going to mark my 4.5 inches from that midpoint. So as you can see me doing here, I'm just trying to find where 4.5 inches from the midpoint is. And then I'm just marking it on each and every one of them, as you can see me doing. And this is basically my dart. So on those midpoints, the part of the dart on the waistline, on either side of this marking, I'm going to mark 1/2 inch on both sides. So just marking my 1/2 inch, as you can see, on both sides, because remember we added 1 inch on each side for our dart allowance. So we're going to our dart is 1 inch wide, so it's just going to, from that point, narrow down to the top leg and the bottom leg, and that's basically going to be the dart. So I'm going to mark my darts on my back pieces as well, and here is the final result. You can see this is what the dart looks like. It comes out as it goes down. The waistline is where you have the widest part of the dart, and it just narrows down as it goes down and up. So now I'm going to join my shoulders and the sides of my dress. So you can see this is the right side of the fabric, so laying them so right sides are facing each other. I'm going to join the shoulders, and then I'm going to join my sides as well. And then for the back, I want a slit at the back of my dress, so I'm just going to start somewhere around here, and I'm going to move up this way with my straight seam, and then of course I'm going to leave some space up here for my zipper. So we're going to sew from somewhere around here, and yeah, so you can see I've joined the sides. I have joined this area right here, leaving my slits open because it's a midi dress, so I need space for my legs to be able to move. And then this is where my zip is going to be. And then for the slits, I'm just going to finish the raw edges and then fold it over. For mine, I'm just going to use hemming gum, but you can use a straight seam to just fold it over and hold it in place. And then I'm going to do the hemming as well. So this is what the dress looks like without the sleeves. I just wanted to try it on to make sure there were no issues with the fit, and I'm happy with the dress so far, so we can go on with the sleeves. So as you can see, I've hemmed my bottom. I haven't finished the edges on the slits, but this is what it looks like so far. I'm going to put hemming gum to flatten it and just hold everything in place. So now our sleeves. So first thing I'm going to do is to run a straight seam at the underside of the sleeve, and then do the hem before attaching it to the body of the dress. So as you can see, I've done the hem, I've done the underarm, I've done this area. So for this other sleeve, you can see that I've pinned it to the body of the dress. I made sure the side seam of my dress and the underarm seam of the sleeve are aligned, and then I pinned this sleeve to the body, or to the armhole rather, and then I'm just going to use a straight stitch to sew it, and we'll be done. Here is the final result.
you so much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed it. I hope everything was clear enough. Remember, if you have any questions or any clarifications, please let me know in the comment section and I will reply as soon as possible. Also, if you have a tutorial request as like something that you are interested in, you would like to see on this channel, then you can send me a DM on Instagram. My Instagram is linked in the description box and I will get to it as soon as possible. Once again, thank you so much. Please remember to subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next tutorial. Bye.